History of modern music, a few musicians don't just play their instruments, they redefine them. They change how the instrument sounds, how it's built, and how future generations will play it. For the electric bass, one of those visionaries was Anthony Jackson, a bassist whose ideas pushed the instrument far beyond its traditional role. Jackson wasn't simply a virtuoso player, he was an innovator, a musical architect, and the man responsible for creating the modern six-string bass, which he called the contrabass guitar. Across thousands of recording sessions, he helped shape the sound of jazz, funk, soul, and fusion. From the legendary groove of "For the Love of Money" to collaborations with some of the world's greatest musicians, Anthony Jackson quietly became one of the most influential bass players of all time. This is the story of the visionary who expanded the bass guitar forever. Before we continue, subscribe now, like this video, comment, and share. Anthony Claiborne Jackson was born on June 23, 1952, in New York City. Growing up in one of the most culturally rich cities in the world, Jackson was surrounded by music from an early age. His first instrument wasn't the bass, it was the piano. Later, he switched to guitar, developing a deep understanding of harmony and composition before eventually discovering the instrument that would define his career: the bass guitar. Jackson was inspired by legendary players such as James Jamerson and Jack Casady, whose innovative grooves helped shape the sound of soul and rock music. But Jackson had a different vision for the bass. Even early in his career, he believed the instrument had far more potential than most musicians realized. By the early 1970s, Jackson had already become an active musician in New York's recording scene. He quickly developed a reputation for precision, musical intelligence, and versatility. One of his early breakthroughs came when he joined the band of soul singer Billy Paul. Jackson played on Paul's famous hit, "Me and Mrs. Jones," which became a #1 song in 1972. This success opened the door to more opportunities. Soon, Jackson was working with the influential Philadelphia International Records production team. During this period, he contributed to several classic recordings of the era. One of Jackson's most famous bass performances came in 1973. The song was "For the Love of Money" by the O'Jays. The track begins with a hypnotic bass riff that has become one of the most recognizable grooves in funk history. Jackson played the opening bass line and received co-writing credit for the song. The groove helped propel the track into the charts and later became widely recognized in pop culture. For bass players, the song became essential listening, a masterclass in groove and tone. As Jackson's reputation grew, so did the list of artists who wanted to work with him. Over the decades, he recorded with an extraordinary range of musicians, including Roberta Flack, Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, Steely Dan, Paul Simon, Madonna, Aldi Meola. His ability to adapt to different styles made him one of the most sought-after bassists in the recording industry. In fact, Jackson eventually participated in over 3,000 recording sessions across more than 500 albums. Few bass players in history have recorded as extensively. Despite his success, Jackson wasn't satisfied with the traditional design of the bass guitar. The standard 4-string bass had limitations, limited range, limited harmonic possibilities. Jackson began imagining a new instrument that could expand the bass's musical role. As early as 1968, he began conceptualizing an electric bass with 6 strings. His idea was simple: add a low B string below the traditional E, and add a high C string above the G. The result would extend the instrument's range dramatically. During the 1970s, Jackson worked with instrument builders to create the first versions of his design. These early prototypes eventually evolved into the modern 6-string bass. Later, he began collaborating with high-end bass manufacturer Fodera, which produced custom instruments built to his specifications. The contrabass guitar was typically tuned BEADGC. This tuning expanded the bass's range both downward and upward. It allowed Jackson to perform bass lines, chords, and melodies on the same instrument. For him, the bass was no longer just a rhythm instrument, it was a complete musical voice. In the late 1970s and 1980s, Jackson became closely associated with jazz fusion. One of his most important collaborations was with guitarist Al Di Meola. Jackson appeared on several of Di Meola's albums and tours, helping create a powerful rhythm section that blended jazz improvisation with rock energy. His playing during this period demonstrated the full potential of the contrabass guitar: complex harmonies, lightning-fast lines, deep grooves. The bass had evolved into something entirely new. Later in his career, Jackson became widely known for his work with Japanese jazz pianist Hiromi Uehara. Their collaboration in the Hiromi Trio project showcased his musical maturity and technical mastery. Alongside drummer Simon Phillips, Jackson formed one of the most dynamic rhythm sections in modern jazz. Audiences around the world witnessed his ability to combine power, elegance, and musical intelligence. Throughout his life, Jackson performed in more than 30 countries and worked with artists across multiple genres. Despite his enormous influence, he remained relatively modest about fame. His focus was always on the music, the craft, the sound. Many musicians described him as a perfectionist who demanded the highest standards from himself and others. Anthony Jackson remained active in music for decades. However, in later years, he faced health challenges and occasionally stepped away from touring. He passed away on October 19, 2025, at the age of 73 in Staten Island, New York. At the time of his death, tributes poured in from musicians across the world. Because Jackson's influence extended far beyond the notes he played, he had fundamentally changed the instrument itself. Anthony Jackson was more than a bass player. He was an inventor, a visionary, a musician who refused to accept limitations. By creating the 6-string contrabass guitar, he expanded the role of the electric bass forever. Today, extended-range bass guitars are used by musicians all over the world, and every one of them owes something to the ideas of Anthony Jackson. Because sometimes, changing music doesn't begin with a song. It begins with a vision. And Anthony Jackson had one of the most powerful visions in the history of the bass guitar. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next video.